Good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are well on this beautiful Wednesday morning, I believe. Today we're going to look at a couple of painters who've been, we've seen their paintings before, they've been working along, and we're going to see if we can't get them onto the next level. But before we start that, why don't we catch up with our announcements? Good morning, Susan. Good to see you. Good to see you. So, the purpose of us being here, at least on our side, is to help encourage, support, inspire, and educate you in the arts, charcoal and oil painting in particular. So we're having this live show this morning, and we'll have it tomorrow morning. And then we'll take a break and be back on Monday. There'll be no 1:30 show today. We've got some new lights. We got those installed, and today we're going to finish moving around the cameras. I think you guys will be real happy with what's happening with that. And hopefully we'll be able to show that to you next week as well. And then 8 p.m. tonight will be the last of the Masterworks for this week, and we'll pick that back up again next week. No sketchbook live tomorrow on Facebook, but we'll be back Sunday for that show at 6:55 Pacific Standard Time. And let's see, we'll have our class tomorrow morning, our Zoom class, instead of Friday, and there'll be no Zoom on Monday. So with all of that done, I think we are caught up. Good morning, Miss Cindy. So let us pick up our pencils and see what we have. So I think I'll switch. Let's start with Susan first. And if you had any questions or whatever, feel free to let me know. But let's have a look at what we've got here. Do-si-do. Put myself out of the way here. All right, so you made note that it was getting a little tough because of the size. One of the things about these studies is that you gotta have to know what you're after. Generally, you're not going to get to a refinement stage as you would in a larger painting, just because there's not enough room to do much of that. But with that being said, we can still talked about well, just running out of time for one thing, and then the other thing was some color on the dog, and that you didn't want the skeleton to stand out quite so much. And was that it, or was there something else? That's all that's coming to mind. So if there's something else, let me know. Mr. Tom is here this morning. Good morning, Tom. Good to see you this morning. So we're going to look at the Frolicking Pups again. I was just having a little look before we get started here. So I think we're going to see this theme on both paintings today. And it's color in the shadow is a little bit of it. And what else? What else? And a lot of times, like I've spotted some things, but I haven't quite decided what to do with them yet. So let me just show you what's catching my eye. What's catching my eye? Miss Janny made it this morning. Good morning, Janny. Good to see you. And two, this could just be the size. You know, it's hard to work some of this detail out on this size. But for some reason, I'm picking up a lot of kind of hard straights. through here, and I think that is one of the things holding it back from the dogs feeling a little more playful. Right? It feels very geometric, formal. We should put on our suit and tie and talk about this. Anyway, that's kind of the feelings I get when things get a little too straight. And that really comes back to well, we call it our gesture or our movement, but it goes with everything. To bring things alive, if we can just give them a little curve. Right, so maybe grab that, could let go there. Let's see. So I'm going to look for some curves. I'm going to just look for some curves and see if we move some of that, if that would be better. And then what I want to do is I want to look at some shadow colors. Shadow colors. Okay. So I think what's happening here is that's, of course we've got this down here. But other than that, that painting ends right there. So okay. And again, I'm doing this on screen because I think it's important for you guys to see how I find this. It's not mystery. Right, so I'm just again feeling kind of a lot of straights in this. One more time, this is super small, and so that's easier to happen. But the reason I'm going over it like I am is because you're able to paint dogs. You're able to paint dogs running, grass, all of these things. But again, we're asking for a little more, right? We're asking for that feeling of frolicking. And so these underneath abstract elements are as important as, the shape of the dog and making them run and getting their feet off the ground and all of that are these abstract elements right here. So we're going to talk about curving these guys, maybe offsetting this guy from here, and that this line is a little harsh here. And that's feeling a little empty. So it's not that you can't have empty things. We've seen that in the last couple of nights on Masterworks. Let me look my head up and make sure. Okay. Yeah, so one of the things we want to do for sure, I think, is move this guy a little bit over. Even if it's just right here. I think that's going to help tremendously. And then I think the dead spot that we talked about, or we can call it a quiet spot, here, I think might be better served more right here. And again, the purpose of that would be we want to send these guys around, I think. And that guy's a second read. So maybe, and you don't have to correct this on this one, Susan. These are just ideas. So on the next one, so again, maybe rather than having these guys so lined up, stagger them a little bit. Maybe leave this guy where he is and then take this guy and just, you know, not a lot. They could still be together, but just that more staggeredness rather than that straight. Right, so if this guy's over here, even if he's in the background, right, then I think that's going to help that kind of movement. So, you know, we can think about kind of starting and stopping, right? And so we're obviously going to be starting the painting down here. So I think what I would focus on is kind of this general area. So let's call this introductions or whatever. This is our first meeting. I like this guy. Let's continue our conversation. And then again, not necessarily on this one, but when you get back to him, let's move this guy up just a little. Or, you know, stagger these guys. Like the top of him's not too bad. But this is what's happening here. And this is just way too steep and like an arrow pointing off the side of the canvas. So what I'm trying to achieve here by moving him up is to break that. In other words, if he's going here, then let that movement run into the back of the dog to stop him, slow you down, and then with him being a little bit up. This is a light shadow issue. I'll get to that in just a second. And again, I know this is small, and maybe that's slightly too far back. I don't know. And again, this is pretty subtle, but I feel like if we just move this movement slightly over this way and slightly down, because why? Where does that come from? Well, in my mind, it's coming from that. And remember, we've talked about we want our steep angles up front. And then as we work our way back, we like them to lay down more, to get more passive. And for that reason, yeah, might even move that guy. Or maybe switch these two. So that this guy may be here, right? Lower him here. Let that guy come over here. Move that guy right through there. Okay, so let's see, what color are we going to use? I want to use a color that will really, really jump off of this in all those places. So that should do it. That should do it. Okay, so this is how we want to move around the canvas. So we've got the dog. I would use that tongue sticking out of the mouth. Cast shadow, I would use the grass, all of that. So this is going to be the introduction. We're going to move back to the second dog. the third dog, the very last dogs. No, I'm sorry, not the last dog. Well, let's just say the next dog, and then the very last dog, we're going to move there. And so, let's see. That would give us that. Good morning, Shakti. Good morning, Shakti. Do you guys see that? I mean, I see it clear as day now that I figured it out and marked it. But that doesn't mean that you guys are necessarily seeing that. So let me know. And what I'm asking... Do you see what those green marks, the movement of, let's just simplify this down here. Let's just make this very clear. Very clear. So by moving them around, this is what we get here. Right? We've got the big dog coming into the little dog, and then we're going to raise that dog behind him, and then we're going to lower that angle so it's not so steep, and then bring you back like that. Okay, so Janie sees the movement. Okay, good. Okay, and again, if Susan gets frustrated, she doesn't show it. And this can be frustrating because sometimes we're working on completely different problems that need to be worked on. So now let's kind of compare that with what we're seeing, or what I'm seeing. Okay, so this is an interesting conversation here. Would you use the back leg of the front dog to recapture the movement? So what she's saying is, we said we're going through here. We're going to come back, and then would we just start again here? And it's taught like that a lot. And something that kind of blew my mind is I heard David LaFell say, no, that's not how art works. Right? You don't get to the end of the novel and you have to start again. The novel's over. Now, you can always pick up the book and reread it. And he says the same as with the painting. You can always re-look at it. But there's a movement with a start and a finish, and the painting's done. So, I'm going to leave that right there and let you guys contemplate and decide what you feel is better. When I look at David's paintings versus paintings that have done the keep going around and around and around, I find much more satisfaction in David's than I do the others. Okay, so again, we're going pretty deep here, so we'll see. And then Janie asked about the Fibonacci rule, and I don't know. I think what happens is if you put that in and then you try to draw to it, again, what you're doing is you're letting yourself off the hook a little bit, right? Instead of looking and trying to see for yourself and weigh, you say, oh, here, this Fibonacci's rule is going to make it. Well, not necessarily. I mean, just because you put things along that line doesn't mean you have good movement, good in and out, good paint quality, good size, good color, good... You know what I mean? So it's not a bad idea, I don't think, to look at some of the stuff. Um, uh, but again, develop, what do I want to say? I don't know if it's intuition, taste. So what is the Fibonacci rule? It's sometimes it's called the golden means, and let me see if I can remember it exactly. But it's the idea, like you're coming in like this. I don't. Do you start over here? I can't quite remember. But anyway, and then they're like a rule of thirds where you come in like that. Now I know that's not it, and that's very weak. But it's that general idea, and that might spark your imagination to it. I know golden mean. Yeah, so the golden means is what? Same thing. I like the novel analogy, and I love. Yeah, it was the first time I heard it, and I don't know if he's the only one that says it, but that was the first time I heard it, and it rang true to me. Um, so if you have any questions, let me know. But I think I will stop there. You're not too far off on the color and everything. But the placement, I'm not going to stop there because I have a couple other things to say. I think the placement is going to be the most profound change in this right now. And I say that knowing that you can lighten shadow and put color on the dogs. I know you're capable of that, right? But this movement, I don't know that you have as much experience in that. And so I think that would be the next thing. And then, let's see. One of the reasons that this guy stands out here is that everything around it is in shadow and he's all lit up. Not all, I see some shadow here. But how we could correct this or make it look better pretty easily, and I think it would take some of the starkness away as well, is that tree, whatever it is, right? You could let it, a little light hit that. And then as that tree would turn around here into shadow, right? One of the things that would happen would quite a bit of him would be in shadow, right? Because if that tree's in shadow, he's in shadow, and I think by making this mostly shadow, that will help a lot. And then what you could do, let's see. I just want to get a little better shadow on that grass there. Right, see, we can still have color in the shadow. And once you get a little color in that shadow, then he's not going to be so prominent. He, she, I don't know. I'm being sexist here. I can't tell if it's a female or male. Right, and then that skeleton again, maybe a little bit of light hits this, or come and hit this right there, or, you know what I mean? You could make it to where the light's just kind of glancing on him, but he won't be totally in light, and that would help a lot with that. And then we talked to, but that shadow again, if it goes from black to a little more color, right? Even that, we can keep it dark, but by going that dark green, And then what I was thinking, if we want to focus on the head, then maybe somehow, this could even be a tree shadow. So, he's got a shadow there. And then also, what's a white dog in shadow look like? Anybody know? Well, it completely depends on what environment he's in. Or she. Or it. The quadruped. Where's the quadruped? So on the dog, again, what I might do is, because again, well, anyway, let's not get too far down that rabbit hole again. Right, if this was all, he was just rolling under a shade tree or something. Right, and see that initial note isn't quite as harsh. See a little darker, richer up front. That's what we got to set up here with the grass. So yeah, see, I'm trying to think if I could even get a little darker here in the light, which is going to help me go backwards into space. And again, that's too green. I'm just hitting the initial general ideas here. Right, and then just make that like a tree shadow or something. And since I can't stop myself because it's just fun. I mean, once you get these down, it's kind of like scales or something. It's actually fun to do, just walking these things off in space. And then what I'll do is, you see how quote unquote green this is? It just looks too much. Too much. At least for my eye. Then I'll go back, with a layer of orange or red or something. Well, what do you mean? Well, basically the same thing, but just little. You see, I can go in and then if I rub that in a little bit, or a lot, then it takes some of the bite of that green off. And again, I know that's clumsy, but I'm just showing you the idea. Do you feel that green kind of, whereas before, up front, you see this, it's so much. It just needs a little break. It just needs a little break. I love you to death, sweetie, but I just need, 5 minutes to go to the bathroom. It just needs a little break. I should be smearing better than that. Maybe I've got some sort of weird... Oh, am I in charcoal or something? What am I in? Yeah, I'm in charcoal instead of oil paint. Okay, that's why I'm having such a hard time. Goodness. Anyway, that's the idea there. Those couple of ideas. The movement, and then, playing with the color and the light and shadow with that. Okay, let's see. Let me catch up on some of these comments. Okay. Oh, right on. So I'm glad you were able to follow along, Shakti, because these are, some people have been painting for years and years and years would have a hard time kind of understanding that. So I'm glad you're able to follow along. And good, Susan. Okay, so you see things. Good. All right. And you know what, Susan, at some point, too, let me know, because at some point you're going to want to get in and just, okay, let's start over or just finish this painting, whatever. Each time you turn it in, I'm treating it as a teaching moment. But the other thing you have to do in executing a painting is it is really important to keep the energy up. So don't get to where it's just because if you're sitting there painting and you got no energy and you're just hating it, that's going to come out on your brush. So there's a balance between, what can I do to improve this, and then just not getting bogged down in, okay, now what do I do? Now what do I do? Now what do I do? So we've spoke about that before. And it's progress and processes. Oh, nice. So, yeah, it's so fun. This does take two people. And so it is a real dance. And so I want to thank, a lot of you, but today Susan and Karen have taken the suggestions and worked on the painting several times and turned them back in. So, and we all get to benefit from it. Oh, thanks. Maybe someday I'll be able to. You will. The reason I'm talking about it like I'm talking about it is I want to give you the understanding and the knowledge much, much more than I want to help you finish this painting. And, I know emotionally we get involved with particular paintings, but, I don't care if you get a good painting, right? I want you to be a great artist. And so and I don't care whether you've never picked up a pencil before or whether you've been painting for 45 years and haven't made any progress. I want all of you to be great artists, and you can. Yeah, Jan, very much so. Thank you, Susan, and being teachable. Because like I was saying, it can be hard to be teachable when you're so emotionally attached to these things. And we get emotionally attached to them. We're getting emotionally. Right on. Okay, Susan, fantastic. Let's see. Oh, there you were. Sorry. Good. Yeah, we really appreciate your hard work, and we're all benefiting so much from it. Great, guys. Great. All right, well, let's move along to another painting. To Miss Karen's here. And I believe that, if I remember right, excuse me, my brain's a little bit fried. We've been doing so much. So, thanks, everyone. All right, so, our goal around here, and I may have said this at the beginning, but it really is to encourage, support, inspire, motivate, connect you guys. And I struggle with the word educate, because educate's like I have something that I can give you. I don't have anything, right? All I can do is, these are the general principles I understand, and to my understanding, this is how those principles work together. And I'm pointing you to things, but you guys have to go get it, right? I have nothing I can give you. But I can point and go, hey, let's think about this, or hey, let's think about that. So encourage, support, inspire, motivate, and let's replace educate with maybe enlighten, right? Because once you're enlightened to this, then you guys will be great artists, right? You already are great artists. It's kind of like just dusting things off. All right. Absolutely. Great. All right, so Miss Karen. So I'm going to take just a second and look at these. Take a little sip of tea. And I'm so glad you turned this in, because I think a lot of people can relate to this stage of the painting. Right? There's so much that's right, but something's still off. Right? Do you guys ever get that way? You feel proud, and then, man, why isn't this Rembrandt? Right? I did everything right. You should be in the Norton Simon. And a lot of times, and the other thing that can be hard is it's these subtle shifts. Subtle shifts. So I have an inclination here. I have an inclination that we're going to fix all of this. Well, that's an exaggeration. That we're going to fix most of this with the shadow color. So the way that light is coming in the window, I love that. I love that glow. It seems like it's going through air. It seems like it's lit up air. I love it. So I think we've done very well there. But yeah, when we get to her, we don't quite feel that glow, right? The values are there for the most part, right? And you've got the light in order. I see a highlight, I see some blanched, I see some color. But look how that shadow, can we get her out? Her. So does that right there separate from the background? And I think that's going to be the source of our problem. You see how that shadow, it melds into that background, and the problem is that background feels so airy and away from us. And so what we want to do is we really want to separate her from the background, which we've got here. Right? I think on this side we've got that separation. We might be able to use a little more openness or maybe some glow on her to connect those two pieces. But there's definite separation there. Whereas on this side of the face with the background, right, the shadow side and the reflected light to me are more background than they are foreground. Hopefully you guys could see that, right? And I'm going to tell you the reason that artists are weirdos now. So you guys saw what we just did, right? We just looked at the one side of the face versus the other. So when you're standing in your studio, you know what you're doing there? Or what you're doing here? Or what all this is about? It's about blocking that stuff out and looking at those small pieces of the painting. It's about seeing, okay, is that working together? Like even that shoulder, you see how it kind of separates from the background, but we want definite separation. All right, I know. Prove it. As Izzy would say, enough with your big fancy words. So what are we looking for here? What are we looking for here? So let's just take a mark, kind of take the temperature of that core shadow, and see, and I can see even picking that up, it feels like there's too much white in it to me. So that, oops, you know what? We're going to change into some respectable liquid here, ink. And ink. No. How about an oil painting brush? All right. So we've got that for the shadow right now. And we can see part of the problem is it's just too grayed off. Right, so the shadow a little darker, richer. Now I think this is going to be too red here for the shadow. That might be a little too big. Right, see that? It just doesn't quite go. So let's switch over to a little more orange here a little bit. Maybe drop that chroma a bit. And I want to keep this relatively dark because, again, it's the original shadow or the core shadow. But I want it to have a definite color in it. And see, and I'm feeling like, well, I don't know. It's hard to say until you get it covered. I don't know what I would do. Yeah. And again, this is going to be a little bit sloppy, but I'm going to try to do enough so that you can see the shadow from the reflected light. And like if the hair is turning into shadow, then you're going to get just a bit of the skin in shadow there. And that's going to help a lot with that three-dimensionality. Okay, I know this isn't great TV right now, but it takes a minute to do this. It takes a minute. I was just telling Cindy how we used to have to watch demos, is get there and try to fight for a spot and watch them set up, and it's over 3 hours, so by the time it was done you couldn't remember anything you'd seen. There was no reviewing it. No pictures, no pictures. My goodness. My goodness. So to me, that already... So the first question, is it separate from the background? And the answer is yes, right? Compare our new shadow to our old shadow. And then let's go from there... You know, from kind of the orange. So that could be like burnt umber and orange, or I think you had cad red. So maybe the skin tone would be like a cad red with burnt umber, maybe a little bit yellow ochre. And then as you came over to the shirt, that might be like a cad red and black. And again, we just to separate it. You see how just, I cut it off of the background. And then what will happen is that that cool light will actually look okay. So it's kind of hard without doing the details because, again, it looks clunky. But I hope you can see that by, you know, getting that more colorful under there. And then, but keeping that color flat, and notice there's no white in there. Make sure there's no white in your shadow. Okay, because I am feeling like there's a little white in the shadow, and so that's one of the things that's confusing the foreground from the background. And then, so just more definite on the shadow, you know, darker, separating it off. And I'll get back to the reflected light, but first, I think the other element we might be missing here is kind of a clean enough white. So sometimes if white won't show up, you might have to change the chroma, and you want to take almost all of it out, so it's just the smallest little touch of blue into the white. And then the question is, can we see that? Because we want the highlight to be readable. Now, it doesn't have to be pure white, but it still has to stand off what's there. Let's see, if it's coming in from the side, there might be a highlight there. Might be a highlight there. You know, and I think with those things, like, to me, she's starting to come to life a little bit. So what you want to remember is, in the skin tone, even though it's gray and you've done a pretty good job in it, it seems like to me. And when I say it's gray, it's not like a cat orange or something. But we want it to be a color, and then we want our highlight to be a separate step. And then we want our, well, let's just say, so we want highlight, we want color, we want shadow, and we want background, right? And we want each of those to feel very distinct. Like in my estimation with the face here, if this is blanched, we need some color here. And so I would again go blanched. Now this blanched I would make slightly darker, richer than that blanched, because it's the nose, it's coming off. But that's going to be richer, right? And then we're just going to have a small turn of the gray there to help soften that edge, right? So blanched, richer, that will turn into gray just before it meets the shadow. Okay? Blanch, and then I would save a little rich for there. And then, you know, maybe just the slightest blanch for there. Because again, what we want to make sure that we can see that we're going over the side of the cheek, then we start to come forward, and then we come back out for the chin. Right? All that little stuff. All right, so clean separations in those colors. And I know you know this, and I know you've done this, and I know where it was lost. It's in the lost and trying to soften things up and get into those last details. But while we're doing that, we can't lose our hold on things. And then let's do one last thing here, and I'll look up and see if there's any questions. So if that skin tone is okay, then the reflected light's not going to get anywhere near the light, but it's going to come up a bit, and it's going to be more intense. So the light's coming this way. We can do the reflected light as a counter force that way. Right, but look what I did there. You see what I did? I made a mistake. I put the reflected light right next to, it does not happen that way. You have the shadow, and then within the shadow you'll have reflected light. Oops, way too big. But you've got to maintain some of that original dark. All right, so here on the edge, let's see, let's do like the edge of the face. Again, so you notice how I'll put it in, and then, you know, maybe on the ear or something like that. And then you got to quiet that down. Quiet it down. But you just don't want to rub it in so much that it's all the same. You want to keep your warm plane clean and representing, right, a certain plane of the face. And some of these shapes and stuff are subtle, and these color shifts are subtle. This is no easy task. But see, to me, it's starting to feel better now. It's starting to come alive a little bit. Okay. Now, I don't know if she has... Your measures are off just a little bit, and it's a very common thing, right? But this is blanched on this side and this is rich here. So what would our rich red be? And you said you added some to gray it off a little bit, and there's no problem with that. But so this would be like forward facing plane. And I'm probably way off here, but I just want to give you a relationship. So right, forward facing plane, and I know that's a little bit different. And then when we get to the side here, how is that possible? Right, maybe lighter grayer. But save that white for the if there's a highlight. There may not have been a highlight on the shirt. I mean, it all depends on the material. But again, if there's a highlight there to keep her looking form and not like some two-dimensional illusion, we'll keep that highlight. So can you see how I've clearly separated the blanched from the rich? And then if it doesn't turn all the way into shadow, whoa. If it doesn't turn all the way into shadow, you can still show it turning over by turning into kind of air. So like this would be an example of one that turned over, kind of like in the face, formants in the face, but doesn't quite make it to shadow. It just turns around into air, but then by having kind of a hard edge on this next one, and maybe you have to even get a little blanched right here. And what are you trying to do there? Well, what you're trying to do is say, this is turning up, and that, right? Because we've wrapped around, and now we're going back up, and then we hit the red, and we're wrapping, and then the gray, and then the shadow, right? So I'm talking planes here, right? The plane going up, the plane going across, going down, not quite in shadow, but going through air, and then turning into shadow, right? Just that sequence. So the sequence here is starting with a hard edge, right? And it would be a soft edge between the blanched and the color, and then the highlight can go on the corner of those. And, you know, maybe that highlight's not that bright. But the question is, does it separate off? Like you could do a quieter highlight with something like that, and then with soft edges. Does that? And you see how that still works, but it's quieter than like a pure white. Would that work on the face? See, up here it's too dark. So we could still do that blue, but just a little bit lighter. Okay, and what is... And up in here too, it seems a little warm. So you could go a little bit cool. For the little bit more. That's where I would start. And then we might adjust the background or we might not. I would have to see the relationship. All right, so let me come out of my introverted stoop here and see what's happening. Let's see. All right, we like the Susan's pups chasing the ball. We do. Karen, so enjoying watching this beautiful painting progress. Yeah, thank you too, Karen, for working so hard. Better than 90% of TV. 90? What 10% do what? I'm kidding. Thank you, Janny. What a dance of graying off while maintaining color. Yes, yeah. And again, it's you got to know it intellectually, and then there's the delay of kind of getting it into your eye and where you can recognize it in other people's paintings, and then when you can recognize it while you're doing it. That just moved her forward. Great. Okay, so this is interesting. Janie asked, would permanent green light with white work with a highlight? Only if you'd had that green in there the whole time. You don't want to come adding some color, right? The thing to understand is even if you can't get these bright colors, it's all a relationship. And what do I mean by that? Well, as long as there's a quote-unquote white lane that's clearly separated from quote-unquote the color lane, and that's going to include the blanched color, right? And the color. And then we need our color lane to clearly separate from our gray lane. And our gray lane to clearly separate from our dark lane. Okay, so again, this will be a little bit of a twist on the truth, but it at least start with that. Because most of us, the problem is we lose the clarity of each of those notes, right? And so the music doesn't get clear. Oh, hello, Karen. I don't know how much of that you caught, but you're welcome to watch this, and then let me know if you have questions or turn it back in. All right? So that's why blue with white works, not green. Yeah, so what I'm doing is what's already in here, and I'm using that. And the blue wasn't necessarily just blue, but what it was is it was not red in the painting. Right? So here, I would basically set up a red-blue scenario, or else you could do a triadic or something. But with the red being the color and the blue being kind of the non-color, and then I find my background grays with a mixture of that red and blue and black and white. Right? Get a little bit of those colors in the background there too. And so basically what you're doing is you're working with a color versus a non-color. And then you keep that relationship going, or one to affect the other in the foreground and the background, in the red and the blue, right? And then if you don't, and what that does is it gives you two ways to gray it down. And so what I'm showing you is different ways of coming off your notes or talking about it. So we can gray it down with pure black, which would just be a grayer blue or a grayer red. Or we could gray each of those down with the other, which is going to give a different sort of gray. Right? And so what you're finding here is you've got a whole musical you've got a whole orchestra of grays, whereas before you weren't really thinking of gray as beautiful colors. But really the secret to good color in painting is beautiful grays. If it was pure color out the tube, we'd have masterpieces in every hallway and bathroom in the world over 4 or 5 times. It's not the pure paint out the tube that makes it beautiful. It's the harmonizing with those beautiful grays. All right, well, look at that. We've gone an hour. So I think we'll leave it there. If you guys have any questions, you can get them in really quick. I think we've been sabotaged. Yeah. This is wisdom right here. Right here is wisdom. Let me just move this aside. We've been sabotaged by paint companies with these hundreds of gorgeous colors. Yeah, and they can make beautiful paint if you know how to use them. But if it was these beautiful colors, then tell me why we don't have more masterpieces than we had in the 1600s and the 1700s. Right? We've got colors that are thousands of times brighter. We've maybe exaggerating, but I don't know. At least hundreds of more choices than they had. Right? It was hard. It was harder for them. I mean, it's ridiculous what we have. But that just shows it's not those bright colors. It's how we use them. All right. Thank you for the enlightenment. You're welcome. I'm just, I feel lucky that somehow I have the ability to say it and you have the ability to hear it, because that was not always the case. And that we can do it over the computer is kind of blowing my mind even more. It seems like we can do it more effectively on the computer than we can in person. All right, guys. So we got the light up yesterday. We're going to move some cameras around. I haven't tested it with the cameras, but this should just hopefully change everything. I'm super excited about it. So I'm going to get setting up cameras. I'll be back tonight for Masterworks. That'll be the last one this week. And then in the morning, we'll do one more morning jump start. And then we'll take a few days off and be back on, Sunday night with Sketch Club and then Monday with YouTube. And we will have a Zoom tomorrow if you're available at 9 o'clock. So we'll have a short morning jump start in the morning. You guys have a great day. Yeah, but, community. It's each other. We're really blessed to have each other, and I really can't say how much I appreciate you guys, and that you guys are getting stuff out of this and watching you grow. Just what a great way to spend our time together, growing. So, all right, love you guys. Have a great. If you liked it, make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, please share, tell your friends, because we'd like to grow our community a little bit. We don't want to change it. So if you're an asshole, this isn't for you. But, man, if you're like these other cool people here, then hop on in. The water's great. All right. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.